Okay, this time we will call the meeting to order. Little Miami Local Schools Board of Education meeting. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grice,
Here.
Mrs. Journay,
Here.
Mr. Kermeans,
Here.
Mr. Hobbs.
Here. At this time, we need to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I care for you stay next to me. Then I'll go out.
Now we work well together. At this time, I need a motion to adopt the agenda with the addendum to the agenda that you have in your
I'll
packets.
move.
to highlight. Mr. Kermeans?
I'll second.
Ms. Renee? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grice,
Yes.
Mrs. Journay,
Yes.
Mr. Kermeans,
Yes.
Mr. Hobbs.
Yes. Okay, at this time, I need a motion for the reading of the minutes, June 29th.
I'll
Ms.
second.
Renee, and also the special meeting of July 6th. Sorry about that. Ms. Grice, seconds. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grice,
Yes.
Mrs. Journay,
Yes.
Mr. Kermeans,
Yes.
Mr. Hobbs.
Yes. Okay, at this time, communications and our visitors to the board.
Just an update here. We're continuing to enroll students. We had kindergarten screening began today, and I think we had at last count, around 300 kindergarten students with about 20 or 30 applications still out.
Where are we on kindergarten enrollment total at this point?
About 300 right now.
300, okay.
So it looks like we might be about the same as we were last year, about 330. Fifth grade is where we've seen the greatest amount of enrollment since school is out, and it does appear that we're going to need to add a fifth grade position.
Fifth grade?
We kind of see it a little different each year. Last year, we saw over 75 kids new at the high school. This year, it seems to be fifth grade, so we are going to need to add a fifth grade spot there. So we'll be shifting some staff around. I do believe we have an internal staff member who's interested, who was at fifth grade, that we'll look at. And if that happens, then we'll look at whatever grade level that person's in. We'll look at posting and filling that.
Okay.
We've done some anticipated postings so that we fulfill our contractual requirements to post things internally so that we can be set to go. Looks like we are going to probably be on the same kind of path as far as our growth goes. A little over 1% growth at this point. We'll know more as we get into August, and probably by the August board meeting we'll have a better idea of what our actual enrollment is going to be. The other item that I'd like to update the board on, and I've asked Kathy and our AD to come down and just talk a little bit about where we are with, we've got a challenging circumstance with our increased student participation in our extracurriculars. As we get more kids involved in our extracurricular activities, as you'll recall last month, we heard from some wrestling parents who had a concern about space. Our staff, our leadership staff, actually just returned to the office July the 18th. So one of the first things that we've been doing is looking at what are the options proceeding forward for supporting our wrestling program. As you'll recall, there was an offer to expand the current wrestling room that was supported by the athletic boosters to take down a wall and to move a music classroom out in order to gain about 940 square feet in that wrestling area, in the practice area. think you might recall the coach also mentioned that they ideally would need about 4,800 square feet. Taking that wall down actually puts them around 2,700 square feet. So it's not really, that isn't really going to be a permanent solution if we look at the coach's guidance in that area. So I know it's only been, we've only been back a short time, but I asked our high school leadership team to take a look at the various options that we have before us. Ideally, obviously, as we look at facilities and doing a master plan, this is something that we can include into that as we talk to the parents about their needs across the board, academically as well as on the extracurricular side.
I apologize for my dress. I was in CPI training today and I didn't get a chance to go home, so I don't usually come to the office like this or a board meeting.
I don't see his coaching.
Wrestling.
Yeah,
Yes, wrestling.
wrestling coach. okay.
So, we have been talking about just the different options and looking at the pros and cons of all of those. And Cindy and Tiffany went on a field trip to look at some of the elementary schools to see if maybe some of their facilities would also be options for us. So I'll let Tiffany talk to you about kind of what she's found and the things that we've talked about.
In the paper I gave you guys, it pretty much just highlights everything that you would have gotten before, and I just literally went through, highlighted just the main points of it. I know that one of the discussions was about the multi, that's why I really hit that one, if you notice in your packets. But when we went through, we looked at Mainville Elementary and we looked at Salem as two possibilities, just to house the practicing for all the high school wrestling. What we found at Mainville, pretty much there's just no way, simply if you look at the logistics with stairs going up to the gym alone, we can't do anything with the mats and that kind of thing. There's no storage there. You have the stage, but it has the big rock wall. That's actually the phys ed teacher's office as well up there, and it wouldn't work. The other main point with that is phys ed classes don't end there until 3:30. I think is it Butlerville? Whichever youth organization uses it for a basketball, they come in at 5:30. So that only leaves a 2-hour gap that you would have to, if we could get mats in there, roll everything out, get everything set up, practice, roll everything back up, store it wherever, that kind of thing. So it really isn't a very good option. So from there, we went out to Salem thinking maybe that would work, a little more space. It doesn't have the stair problem, it still has a storage problem, and the main part with that one as well is the time factor. They're out of there until 3:30, same thing. The youth organization comes in at 5:30. So again, we're stuck in that same time crunch where they just wouldn't have enough time to practice with unrolling mats, rolling them back and everything. So we're still looking. We're still trying to figure out if there's something else we can do. But as of right now, those were two of our options we came up with. And unfortunately, they aren't going to work. Any suggestions? We are more than happy to
And
take.
as we start to look at spaces, including looking at, I had some preliminary dialogue about perhaps we could divide multi and get some practice time in the multi-purpose room, which would give them about 3,500 square feet. That room is about 7,000 square feet. There, you start to get into a domino effect because you have our basketball practices, you have some youth basketball practices, so as we have our increased numbers, and we have A teams and B teams that we start to add, we're going to begin whatever we do to support the wrestling piece outside of its current practice area is going to impact practice time in boys and girls basketball, and that's going to cascade down into providing time for youth basketball.
But with that said, though, what we've always said as a board is that all the athletics are important, so would there be a way that we could schedule, in other
Okay.
words, I mean,
A
instead of
couple.
doing, I know from years past, we would have, I'm gonna practice my kids 5 nights a week. Well, you know what, maybe let's do it 3 nights a week, and the other 2 nights, let's get somebody else in there or something along
And
those
at the lower levels, that's typically okay. Up here, unfortunately, that puts us at a pretty big disadvantage. However, we are looking at that. I am talking to Chad a little bit about seeing if there are some ways to adjust times, even just in the space they have now, which is, it's pretty hard. I added a couple things to the multi-section in there that we had left off on the original one, just with a few obstacles that we would have to work around, not just the numerous teams we have in there. We but also that's when we have, after the basketball practices and everything, that's when our spring sports go in, because our batting cage is in there, and it's in the back of that gym, and it stays down, so that would be another obstacle. We'd have to figure out some way to get that up out of the way and secure it. The coming in and out between practices, when obviously they would be overlapping with another one. Yes, and now adding lacrosse as well. There's another one that's gonna be using the multi, so it's just, that's really hard. And we're gonna look at the time piece, but sorry.
And I've been getting calls from youth basketball since June about, they want to know what their time is. And they're a growing program as well. So both organizations, BAA and LY.
Little Miami Youth Basketball.
I can't say it out loud, but sometimes. Both organizations are growing programs and could add more. One of the things that I suggested, they run 1-hour practices with their young kids. And really, I suggested that they might get more rotation in their practice times if they went to a 45-minute time frame with their younger kids. Of course, it's their organization, and whatever time we can give them, they'll have to figure out how they can do that. But we're really not to the point where we're scheduled practicing wise for our winter sports yet. We're still getting everything up and running here for the fall. So, we're engaged with the youth organizations, but we're not really moving as quickly as they would like us to move.
So is there a suggestion here of these 4 options? You took 2 of them off the table, the last 2, but the other 4 options that you show here, the cafeteria, the room used by Mr. Robinson, the pole building, the multipurpose, what is your?
You want to build a whole building?
I'm asking for a suggestion.
And trust me, I know, and we are still working on it. Unfortunately, the things that we've come up with, I mean, obviously, we can make something work. It's whether it's gonna cost a lot of money to do it, if it's gonna displace a lot of teams doing it. We're still trying to figure out the best solution. These are some of the things we've come up with. We're still going through it. I wish that I had a great one to say, hey, this is the one, let's
So you don't have
roll
a
with it.
preference in these 4?
For me, on the learning side, I can't see taking apart a classroom. It's not okay for me to have a teacher set up and break down
Talking about number 3,
Mr. Robinson's classroom.
I agree with that.
It's not okay to have a teacher have to set up and break down equipment in classes every day when that's an everyday class all year.
So I think we can remove that.
And it really doesn't, it's not the long-term fix that the wrestling program needs either. So I hate taking apart rooms, and then maybe when we get down the line a year or 2 and we get to the long-term fix, now we're trying to put walls back up, or we're trying to recreate what we want to do.
So 1, 2, and 4 are still on the table, and you're currently looking at additional options.
Yeah, number 2 on there, using the cafeteria. One thing that we looked at with that is another scheduling issue, because we have a lot of groups that actually use the cafeteria too. Part of them being our youth organizations come in, they do all of their signups, they do all of those things. Another issue with that is, a lot of times our wrestlers are practicing when basketball games are going on. We can't be practicing in the cafeteria when there are you know what I mean? It just, so that's.
So number 2 is off the list.
I know. Like I said,
I'd say
I
I feel
really
like
wish I had a
four.
better one to say, hey, let's roll with this one, but,
I mean, all kidding aside, though, I mean, it does seem to me like that number 1 is, I'm not gonna say a good option, but it seems to me like we're gonna be painted into that one to try to do something along those lines, from a scheduling standpoint.
I'll be very honest, I don't know if that, looking at the big picture and everything, all of the things that it would affect, I don't know if that would be better than trying to use the space that we have currently and making a completely different timeline for practices. If it means adding another coach, if we have to, if those kind of things.
Explain, what do you mean?
Right now, Chad is trying to be at everything. He's trying to, because he's trying to build this program. He's doing a phenomenal job.
Okay.
But he's trying to do it all at once with all of our high school kids. The program's growing, he's running into more kids. With wrestling, instead of just having like our basketball that has a separate freshman practice over the multi while JV's going on one end and varsity's going at the other, wrestling can't do that. Wrestling, they typically do wrestle-offs for different positions, you know, for the different meets and those kind of things, or duels and those kind of things. So they need those kids all there at once. That's why they've been doing it. With program growing so much, that's why they need the additional space. If it means we don't do things ideally, and we have to separate those a little bit, that might be a better option than this. That, yes, wrestling would get a great space, but it displaces so many other things that now we have a huge added cost with the multi, because yes, the curtain, that's not that big of a deal, but all of the extra mats we have to buy, the pad, all of those kind of things, figuring out what we're gonna do with the batting, all of that, you know. Looking big picture, I'm not sure it might, I literally have to sit down and talk to Chad again.
So the suggestion you're making then would be stagger the
Possibly.
practice, which
Possibly.
would utilize the room
It would.
longer with
It
less kids.
does, and it makes a much longer practice time than for, right, as of last year, we had one paid position at the high school, period. We had one paid position at the junior high. Now, we've added to that for this coming year because of our numbers growing. It may be something where we actually have to add one more, just so one coach isn't there for a 6-hour time frame for a practice, you know what I mean? 3 2-hour practices.
So one of the interim pieces might be that we could help support this with some additional supplemental staffing in the short term.
Yes. Again, it's just another option, trying to look at
This
everything.
is number 5 then? Sure.
For 6 or 10, yes.
Well, it looks like number one, just to start, is gonna be your best option, I mean, to me.
I think the biggest thing is number one, again, you start interfering with so many other sports.
Well,
It's not just basketball, it's cheerleading, it's baseball, it's softball, it's lacrosse. And so those are the parents you're gonna have in here next saying, why am I losing my time? And that affects so many people.
Well, that's why, I mean, I just know from the years past, you know, being part of some of the athletic organizations, you always have certain individuals who believe, I need the gym all the time, every day, as soon as the doors are open to the time that they're closed, and because that's how I'm gonna make my team great. And that's fantastic, except you got X other children that you have to get in there.
Sure.
And, I don't know what the answer is, but my concern, I don't want to slight one to make sure somebody else gets something. I want them all treated exactly the same.
That's what we're trying to make sure we
Okay.
do. We don't want to jump the gun and say, okay, let's automatically roll with one if it helps 40 kids, but it displaces 120.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we are trying to
Okay.
make sure that we are being fair to everyone. That's
And I-
why we're still exploring here.
That's
Yeah,
good.
appreciate that, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Tiffany, do you know when you guys will have a thought on that? When you guys will have that? Do you have a completion time? I mean, I don't know when wrestling starts.
It's a winter sport.
Oh, it's a
So
winter
they-
sport,
yes.
okay.
So they start their conditioning,
Okay.
actually, they're at open mats right now.
Okay.
So they are always doing
What does that
something.
mean? I'll open it.
Some of the kids are out there doing conditioning and those kind of
Okay,
things
so
right
they're
now.
in the room now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. One of the other things that it actually is, it affects right now, pushing the times back as well, is our youth wrestling program. It's finally getting up and running again, and it is growing leaps and bounds, which is phenomenal, because it only feeds our programs up here. And they're having to turn away kids because we're pushing so late with practices going late, and again, space factor.
What
So
are-
it's just one more thing that we're trying to consider in this.
What's the age limit on youth
Pardon me?
wrestling? The age limit on youth wrestling?
With youth, oh, they're starting, I want to say the first grade. Kathy, do you know? I think they're kindergarten? They're starting kindergarten.
Wow.
So yeah, so there's a lot. We're working on it. I will try to have something more concrete. I can get it to Mr. Power, he can get you guys some stuff too. I will try.
Because I'm sure we will hear from individuals, and we need to be able to be on the same page as you and get them the same answers. So we want to make sure we're on the same. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, that's all I have at this time.
Okay. We'll write this down. Okay, community comments on agenda items, Ms. Pitts?
No one has signed up.
Thank you very much. This time, we will have the treasurer's reports and recommendations, and we thank our current treasurer down here for sitting in for
You're
Mr.
on.
Gonda.
Today.
Susan, thank you so much.
The treasurer recommends the board approve the financial reports included in your board packet.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Mr. Cremines, Ms. Grice, any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grice,
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Kermans,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. This time, Mr. Power, the superintendent's reports and recommendations, including your addendum that we have in front of us. Item A.
Yes, sir. I would ask the board's approval on the personnel listed under item A, including the addendum.
I'll move.
Ms. Grice?
I'll second.
Oh. Mr. Cremines? All right.
One question, Mr. Power. Where's
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Carpenter, Tiffany Carpenter going? Taking another job or?
Actually, I think she's had quite a successful tutoring business, and she's also Orton Gillingham trained, and so she's going to work for them as a consultant.
Orton Gillingham, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very nice. Any other questions?
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grice,
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Kermans,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
I would ask the board's approval for item B, employee handbook.
I'll move.
Ms. Janae?
I'll second.
Ms. Grice? Has there been much revision on this?
I don't think there's been any changes. Tiffany is.
I didn't see any, that's why I'm
I'm
asking.
right, I'm down here. No,
Where are we?
no, we're good. We're good. Everything,
I didn't see anything highlighted, so that's why I was curious. I just want
correct.
to make sure.
We just changed the dates on the forms and this.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grice,
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Kermans,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
Item C, this is the architectural recommendation. I know that we had a special meeting and we had two architectural firms make a presentation to the board regarding master planning, and at this point, I think it's open for your discussion and guidance.
Okay. Go.
Okay. First, I think we need to entertain a motion break at the floor. So I move- Actually, we have to open the floor for recommendations and then
Okay.
discuss. So I just need a motion.
I need a motion to,
We need one.
the approval of the architect.
Can you make any
I'll
motion?
I'll move on that.
All right, Mr. Green? Bobby, did you make the motion?
Yes.
Okay, so Bobby made the motion, Mr. Green, second? Okay. We had two architectural firms that presented, SHP and Immersion. At this point, yep, you may go first.
Given this a lot of thought, being around here as long as I have, with what we've built since I've been here, and I was very pleased with what both companies brought to the table. One brought some things I liked, and the other one brought some things I liked. Last time I feel very comfortable with Steve Hammond and Paul. I mean, they just done everything that I wanted them to do. The last time that we entertained an idea of using two, and I know we want to use two different architectural firms for the add-on to the buildings that we're looking at. I'm sure one architectural firm will be enough for that. But the last time we used two, we had a problem where we were taking a tour through the building, and the one guy says, "Oh, by the way, we have to add $125,000 for this disappearing staircase," or whatever it was, because they did not plan for that. I don't see that problem as with inversion. They seemed like a very reputable, they knew what they were talking about. But deep in my heart, I feel very comfortable with Steve Hammond Hall.
My preference also is Steve Hannon Hall because they built our junior high. And,
This building,
well, I know that, they built this building.
They built
And,
this
and the addition.
and the addition.
I feel like when you add on to a building, you should really have some previous knowledge. And they've worked with us. There have been some glitches with them, but I feel very comfortable with them. So that would be my preference.
I also like both presentations. One company, Steve Hammond Paul, made a very nice presentation. They have experience here in the district, but there's something about the energy that Immersion brought to the table. I like their passion, and what I like most is that they're gonna see us through with the bond issue. They had a plan. It just seemed like it was out there, and they were ready to run with it. I would be okay with either, but I would lean more towards Immersion.
Good company,
What do you say?
good company.
Speak up, Mr. President.
Well, I will be honest with you, both of them did a very good job. I did like both presentations. My preference, not because there's anything wrong with the other, my preference, as I like the energy that Immersion brought to the table. I thought I liked their class usage utilization study. I like that. What it was is to look at classrooms and see the utilization and how things are going, but that puts us in a precarious position, being a 2-2. We actually haven't taken a vote.
I got a quarter.
We haven't taken a
Lots of
vote.
evens.
Rock, paper, scissors. So like it does.
To be honest, I mean, I agree with each one of them up here. I don't know that we could go wrong either way.
I'll be glad to give you my feedback.
Let's hear your feedback.
I really like Immersion Design, Fannie Howey. We've had a good rapport with SHP. We have had some issues with the buildings here, and they have stood behind us as far as coming back to help us analyze we had some airflow issues here in the original part of this building. And they didn't say walk away like some vendors do, it's what's your problem now. I mean, it did cost us money to put things back to where we didn't have the issue anymore. They didn't pick up the tab for that, but they did help us problem solve some of the issues that we had. I felt of the two firms that Immersion Design on the front end would really dig down deeper and engage our community. There was a level, I thought, of passion for that, or excitement for that. I know some people over in Princeton who have lived through that process over there where they did engage not just one community. Princeton's made up of like 12 or 13 different municipalities. And to be able to engage out in that big of an area, granted it's developed and there are all sorts of different governmental entities. I like the fact that they did go engage governmental entities, which I think is a plus for me, but I think that's a piece maybe that we miss with our township governments and our entities that are in our 98 square miles. So from my perspective, what I'm looking for is master planning. I think architects can architect whatever you want, and for me, that was very appealing.
I'm okay with either, but I was comfortable with both of them.
Yeah, I was.
Oh, I was too.
If they can go in to Hamilton Township and make nice, I'm all for it, because I know what Hamilton Township is like. And, somebody's got to go in there and massage them a little bit. So I can go with Immersion.
I would too. Okay.
So there you go.
Okay,
On the
so,
floor.
yep, problem, well, we need to take a vote. this point. For immersion, can we have roll call, please?
Mrs. Bryce,
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Cremines.
Yes.
And Mr. Haas.
Yes. Okay, there's no need for selection of SHP then. Okay.
What will happen now is we'll contact them. They have to engage in some contract negotiations. We'll be working with both leaders. And hopefully by the August board meeting, we can have a proposed contract to bring back to the board for your approval.
The other thing I'd like, I'm sure everyone here agrees with this, is that we could extend a thank you to SHP. I thought they did an excellent
They
job.
did.
I didn't see anything, I mean, I thought they brought the same quality,
Sure.
the same thing to the table, so.
We'll make sure we do that. I would ask the board's approval for adjusting the November and December meeting dates. That's item D on the agenda.
Ms. Jonay,
I'll second.
Mr. Cummings? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bryce,
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Cremines,
Yes.
and Mr. Haas.
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, items under new business.
I don't have a report, but I am in the process right now of attending the ACTE, the Association of Career and Technical Education Conference. I just came back from Columbus and going back up tonight. Lots and lots of good things going on in our career center. 3 people received awards, and Maggie Hess received the Administrator of the Year for Career and Technical Education for all of Ohio. So that was really a
Good deal.
a good thing.
Very nice.
So that's all I have.
Okay, at this time, our next board meeting will be August the 16th here at Little Miami High School, 7 p.m. Community comments, Ms. Coates, on non-agenda items.
Tricia Lewis has signed up.
Tricia Lewis?
Come on down.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying thanks to the board and to the administration and to the Low Miami community for allowing me to speak tonight. I come to you with a very emotional plea on behalf of the 2018 junior class. I have a child who's 2018 incoming junior, and the junior class, you may or may not know, has experienced a lot of things since January, from sexting, bullying, to suicide, to unfortunate accidents. And I think they're carrying a lot on their plate. And I'm not even including the typical drugs and alcohol that we don't even have to talk about that we know is existing. I come to you because of a number of reasons. One, my daughter. I never would apologize for being her advocate, but I felt pulled since we lost our friend after school started, or summer started, and I just feel like someone needs to step up as a parent and be an advocate for these children. Not just for the 2018 class. I have other children vested in classes below them, and we need to start recognizing and taking some stock in the kids' emotional well-being as well as their physical. Please do not get me wrong on that. I want to stress to you that my daughter's emotional needs have been met from the day she walked in the door at HME with Miss Morgan. I speak to a lot of people in the community. I happen to be in Warren County as a teacher there, and first thing I ever tell them is how well you guys take care of my child. But I feel like we're losing something with these kids in the class of 2018, and I've watched these kids grow up, so it means a lot to me. I know that I have a very short window, but my daughter said something to me once. She said that somebody asked her, "What are you going to do when you leave, when you're done here?" And she said, "I'm going to go far away." That to me is sad. If we want our children to come back and invest in our community when they've graduated, we need to invest in them now. And I'm asking you to consider some things. I I would love to brainstorm or be a part of a committee to help find a way to bridge this gap with these children. But one of the things that leaps off my mind at the moment is dedicating redo day to the junior class, making it mandatory as we can make it. But I'm willing to sit down. I'm willing to petition friends. I'm willing to have my daughter help petition some kids to sit on the focus group, if that's what it takes. But I just don't want to see my daughter feel like she doesn't want to come back here. I think I've lived here. The one thing I valued for myself is I was a transient child. I had several schools, several homes, several states. The one thing I wanted for my kid when I had her, or had them, was I wanted her to grow up in a school system and value that and be proud of that and then want to come back, because this is where I'm going to be. She doesn't have a choice. She's going to have to come back and see me. But I'd like her to want to come back and bring her kids and invest in this community. So I plead with you to just think about that. I had no idea where to start. Didn't know if I should start with the administration, with you guys, but I thought this would cover talking to several people at one time. Again, I appreciate your time this evening. I know it's valuable, and I hope that someone will reach out to me very soon.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
Appreciate that.
Any others? That is it? Okay, at this time, I need a motion.
I move.
Grimes? And a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Cremines? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Grice,
Yes.
Mrs. Jordan,
Yes.
Mr. Cremins,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
We're adjourned.